Hello out there, and in front of you today is the Knock Knives Chef MT-03. And this knife was provided courtesy of the people at Knock Knives, sent to our pass-around group, so I've had it for a while. Actually, I think I've had it a little bit longer than I should, so it needs to go on to the next person. So I'm doing the review today, but I was really happy to get this one in hand because I'd come across this model online a month or two ago, and was just taken by it. I really liked the lines of the knife, the design. I thought it was a compelling design from a new company. And Knock Knives, if you're not aware, they're sort of up-and-comers, I guess. They have a few models. I've seen like 3 or 4 different models. Their cheapest one is a budget kind of one, and I say budget, sort of take that with a grain of salt. It's like a $60 knife. But that too has a design that sort of calls to me, and a lot of their designs just are piquing my interest. And Knock Knives, though, I don't know how closely they're tied to other companies. I've heard that they are like a subsidiary of Stedman or part of like the same umbrella group, but I'm not sure, and I don't know how all that works with the Chinese companies, and we don't really have all that much information about manufacturing. I will get back into some of the design qualities with this and comparing it to a Tucson because in my estimation there are a lot of things that sort of are similar between this and some Tucsons I've seen. But just for today, let's talk about the design, the choices that were made, how this knife was in use, because I did use this knife a lot, and yeah, overall guys, just quick breakdown. I'm impressed with it. I like almost everything about this knife. And let's get started with the blade. So the overall size on the blade. So you can see right here, I mean, if you're lining it up, this is a 4-inch cutting edge. A 4-inch cutting edge. And I actually started filming this review a couple days ago, and that video didn't work out, but I didn't realize until I was filming the review that it was actually 4 inches of cutting edge, because I didn't really feel that. It didn't seem that way when I had it in hand and when I was using it. And I'll show you why. And it's actually a pretty cool feature. So here we have a Paramilitary 2 for size comparison. Overall length, it's the same. I mean, these knives are almost exactly the same in overall length, but you can see just this like big difference in the cutting edge, right? Almost 3/4 of an inch. Well, that's just a little bit odd, right? Well, here's another one of my larger knives. Here's the Super Freak, same kind of deal. The Super Freak is actually a little bit longer overall, but look at the difference in cutting edge. And the reason for that, I knew that the knife had a negative blade angle, when I first picked it up, which, basically the cutting edge is below where your fingers are when you're holding it, which really gives it some versatility in use, and I enjoyed that a lot. But what I wasn't really thinking about was the fact that look at where the scale ends versus the blade. The end of the frame is over the cutting edge. So let me bring back those other knives and show you this. So with the Paramilitary 2, the scale ends, and then you have ricasso or choil or whatever, like this whole flat is called, until you get to the cutting edge. You got about 1/2 inch there almost, Same thing with the Super Freak. If we go down from the end of the scale, you're in the middle of the sharpening choil here. But here, the end of the frame is 1/2 inch into the cutting edge. So you have a knife that basically doesn't have wasted space. Really, really cool, actually. And again, I don't know how much of that was intentional. And I have no idea. But what I do know is that prior to having this knife in the pass round, if someone said you would get a 4-inch knife in hand, you wouldn't even realize it was 4 inches and you would love the thing, I'd think they were crazy. But yeah, I mean, this is a 4-inch cutting edge that I would be very happy to own and carry and use. So there's a first for everything, and Knock Knives did it with this, just based on the design. So pretty cool there. Also, again, I mean, overall size is comparable with the Paramilitary 2, but we have a titanium frame lock with a 4-inch blade that, well, I messed that up, but let's see. With a 4-inch blade that comes in at 4.1 ounces. Where are you going to find that? I'm not trying to really just sell you on the thing, but there are some compelling characteristics, like I said earlier, that just make it jump out. When we get to the blade, I do really like the blade shape. This is M390 blade steel. I have no problems with M390. I don't know validity of how good this M390 is, blah, 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 all that stuff that's going on with hardness and stuff. I try not to pay attention to that. What I do pay attention to is how the knife is in use, and this knife performed very, very well. Very, very well. It just was a beast. The stonewash on it is very nice. I do like the way that instead of having like a rounded transition down to this like Wharncliffe almost blade, it is more angular. So it's going to be really good for piercing, but it does just have some visual characteristics that make it stand out. I do really like that. The two, not necessarily, well, one of them's almost a negative, but let's just get into these two things. So the two areas of the blade that are sort of question marks for me are the opening hole and the jimping. The opening hole, for one reason, it's too big. And aesthetically, sure, that can be an issue. But more than that, what I was finding when I spider flicked it, I mean, I can fit my finger in there. And if you fit your finger all the way in there and then try to open it, that's going to suck. So if it were me, I would have cut the hole down just a little bit, but I mean, you can still get in there easily and open it, but if you extend too far in there and then try to flick it, like that's not going to feel good, and that happened to me a couple times. So if it were me, I'd probably just like do something like that. But that's just one thing. The other thing, though, is the jimping, and there are a number of aspects of this knife that it looks like they're just done for show, and the jimping is one of them. It's not a negative because it's better than no jimping, but as you can see, it doesn't extend all the way across the spine. And why not? Does it just look better on the edges? I don't know. But it's not nearly as grippy as it could be. That said, the knife was really comfortable, and again, using it as much as I did, I didn't see any real problem with that, but I always like the opportunity to get a better purchase because it does free you up for different kinds of like handle configurations where like the way that you're holding the knife can change and it can be comfortable different ways. That really wasn't the case here, and it would have been better if there were some jimping. As we move on back, we do have this titanium frame lock. Here's the knife closed, by the way. So, actually, we're going to sort of digress for a quick second, just to do it closed versus the Paramilitary 2. See? So all that extra blade length and closed, it's like almost the same size. So, pretty neat. But anyway, as we move on back, we have this titanium frame lock. Nice stainless steel interface insert with the over travel stop. Very good job with that. Lockup on this knife is excellent. The titanium, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Tucson. The titanium, when I first saw it, immediately reminded me of a Tucson knife. I've seen a bunch of Tucsons in my day. I've had a few come through. They all, not all of them, but a lot of them have like this kind of worn finish and some of this similar machining. And I actually have one right here that is a little bit similar just in the look. And yeah, so when I saw this, it reminded me, hey, that sort of looks like what Tucsons look like. And I don't know if there are other designs that this harkens from or sort of borrows from. There might be. I don't know everything that goes on in the knife community, especially with smaller companies. And I don't know if Tucson's done anything like this, but I would not be surprised if there wasn't some kind of connection between maybe manufacturers or production, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I don't know, but just wanted to mention that. But yeah, the lockup as we continue to move on back was very good. One oddity, and this is sort of where the aesthetic aspect and pieces for show sort of come into play. You see these screws right here? Here and here? They don't do anything. As far as I can tell, I don't know what the heck they could be doing. They don't do anything. They just screw into the titanium frame. And over here as well. I mean, they're set below the... Maybe they... You want to know what? I think the backspacer goes beneath them, but I don't think they actually hold the backspacer in. You know, you can see where they come out right up here. I don't think they hold the backspacer in. I just think they're there for show. These screws too. So I'm not sure why. If you want to have something decorative, why you would want it to be a screw. But I mean, it does sort of have this like mechanical kind of design and machining. So I guess it works with the flow. I mean, honestly, like visually, it doesn't impair the knife at all, and it doesn't impair the knife functionally. So like, I guess it's no problem. It's just weird. Maybe, one of the things I thought was like, when you have like a shirt or a pair of shorts and they have that extra button sewn in just in case you lose one. I wonder if like one of these screws could. I mean, is it the same size as these screws? Yeah, maybe it's just an extra screw if you lose a screw. Who knows? I don't really have any understanding of it. But again, it's just an oddity, and it doesn't impact the way the knife actually works. Going all the way back, here we have our billboarding. It is on the backspacer. Not really the place I would put it. Nock Knives Chef MT-03, M390 blade steel. So that's all the information. That's the only place you'll find anything printed. I guess that's a positive that it's not on the blade. For me, I never have any issue with stuff being on the blade, but just because of this big cutout, like where would you put it? And where would it not like really dominate the lines of the knife? So I think it was smart to not put it on the blade in this case. And the other positive is just depending, and you can see actually perfectly right now, depending on how it's angled, you can't even see that there's writing on the backspacer. So it only shows up in the right kind of light. So actually, if you're going to do it and you're going to do it this way, like this is a good way to do it. Like they did it well. So yeah, again, not really the most traditional way of doing things, but for what it is, it worked. We do have a one position tip up pocket clip. I like the clip. I had zero issues moving it in and out of the pocket. It was pretty darn good for knives of this size. I don't want it to be completely deep carry, and so this was sort of the perfect amount of real estate poking out for me. So yeah, I actually really do like this clip. The big wins, let's get to the big wins of the knife. Well, the biggest win is the action. The action on this knife is superb. So I already showed you like with the opening hole, you can spider flick it, you can slow roll it. The D10 is decent enough that it's not really gonna shake out very easily, but it is easy to pop open. So you can just pop it open and slow roll it, flicking it. You just have to get the right spot, but it works no problem. And then obviously spider flicking it as well. I thought maybe just like you might be able to front flip it just because of this sticking up, but there's just no leverage. It just doesn't work quite that way. So, but yeah, it is just very, very smooth. Closing the knife is ridiculous. I mean, it is just very, very, look at that. So, and that's another thing that reminded me of Tucson. Tucson just has some very, very smooth knives out of box, and this one is right up there with the best of them. So, one negative, and you actually saw me just sort of struggle with it, is that right here, the disengagement of the lock, there's no jimping, and it is just a little bit deep, and the frame is very thin, like the gap is very thin at the point of lockup. So you do have to dig in a little bit to get that disengaged. Definitely something that people want to be aware of, because for some people it really matters. Sometimes, especially if there's like any kind of heavy texturing and it hurts my thumb to disengage it, I'll consider it a negative. In this case, not so much. It isn't painful at all. It's just a little bit more difficult to do. Like you have to disengage the lock with a purpose. So yeah, there's that. Ergonomically, as I was saying with the jimping, it could be a little bit better. Like right now, it's hot in Florida, guys. I don't have the fan on in this room. My hands are sweaty, but I would have no problem being able to grip this knife and hold on to it. It isn't heavily textured. There isn't a lot of traction on the titanium frame. You can see there's some machining, and the machining is done well, but I mean, you're not going to get any grip up from that, like any extra like purchase. But there's nothing sharp, and so that's a big negative too, because this knife, in my estimation, is actually meant to be used. And overall, the conclusion, when I looked at this knife, I saw a lot of things that were done for visual purpose, a lot of characteristics that weren't functional, like the jimping and the screws and some of the machining. And I thought, man, maybe this isn't a knife that is, intended to actually be a heavy user. Maybe it's, just supposed to be a pretty good looking kind of knife. But man, this thing cuts, guys, and it performs. And again, I don't know how good the M390 is, but this was more than sufficient for everything I needed it to do. You know, I was testing, I think, a half dozen knives the day that I was breaking down a whole bunch of cardboard. My wife bought all this patio furniture. And easily, of the 5 or 6 knives that I was using, like, this one was the one that I enjoyed using the most. So it just felt great in the hand. It just performed. That negative blade angle is excellent just for all the different kind of positions you need to attack something with. Really good leverage because of that. And the question now is, we have a knife that is from a maker that we don't really know that well, right? And we probably don't trust them because, you know, we haven't seen anything from them before. So are you going to pay $159 for this knife? Or $139, because I think there's a $20 coupon on Amazon, which is the best place to get these is on Amazon. So you can get this for $139. I think they have a model in like the $60 to $70 range. They have a couple other models in the $100-something range. But as you might know about me, whenever I purchase from a company for the first time, I like to go budget. And then I work my way up, and you know, once I get a feel for what the company's about, and once I build some trust with them, that's when I'll go for one of the more expensive lines. You know, my first Benchmade was a mini grip. That's what I could afford, and you know, now that I trust Benchmade as much as I do, I'll buy some of their nicer stuff. So with the Nock knives, like, I don't know what I would do if it were me trying to purchase this. I can tell you guys with 100% certainty that I feel like this is a $150 knife. Absolutely. It's worth it. If you like the design, I think you're going to get the performance. I think that Spyderco, Benchmade, any other company, ZT, if they made this knife, they'd charge $200 plus for it easily. If this knife said Bestech, they'd charge $200 plus for it easily. If it said WE, it'd be $250. If it said Kaiser, it'd be $2 something. You know what I mean? Like, this has that level of quality, I think. You know, I think it has that level of value. So the question you have to ask yourself is, are you willing to make that investment into a company that you don't really know anything about? That's up to you. I like the knife, and I like it for so many reasons that were just sort of surprising to me when I picked it up. So that's really all I have, guys. Hopefully you got something out of this one. I really enjoyed my time with this knife, and honestly, the reason why I'm in the pass around group is to be able to enjoy knives like this. I mean, this is one of the best experiences I've had since I had a knife in the pass around group, so really thrilled with it. But any other questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know down below. Really appreciate it. Thanks again to Nock Knives for sending this one out. Have a good one and take care.